So let's just pretend I'm a developer. It's my first day on the job. And somebody says, Colin, the first thing you need to do is get our application running. What am I going to do? I'm going to check out the code base. In this case here, like here's my directory. This is just checked. Like literally, this is actually, if folks want to follow along, they can literally do that. Like you guys could follow along in the demo. You guys can build this box. You guys could actually go so far as to actually build this actual infrastructure. Like the CloudFormation file and everything is checked in. So like everything you guys are going to see here, publicly available right here. So here we go, my first day on the job. I'm a developer, I've come on board. My first job is to run like an application. So here we are. I've built on Ubuntu Trusty 64. That's my preferred operating system, or one of them. Ubuntu or CentOS are both very good candidates for establishing consistency between Amazon and local workstations. So pretty straightforward. And then here what I'm doing, just for the sake of the demo, is I'm using a shell script. And I'm literally going to run the same shell script on Amazon as I run locally. So there's just perfect parity between the two environments. So here we go. Pretty straightforward, right? Basic web server running on my own machine. So what I've done here, well, don't worry about this so much. I've kind of primed this already. But what I've done is I've just created a tarball. I've uploaded it to S3. And what you'll see is since the operating system's the same and the configuration management that I'm going to run is exactly the same, perfect parity here. So all right, so the CloudFormation file I have here is going to build some simple kind of Amazon infrastructure. It's a load balancer with an EC2 instance on it, obviously running Ubuntu using the same exact configuration management software that I have run locally. So perfect parity.
So at a high level, you are reproducing the environment of your machine on AWS VM?
very, very similar. What I'm doing is I'm basically using the same operating system, so the same base image. I'm running configuration management so that I have like basically development and production parity, and then I'm just going to deploy the same exact software.
So are you copying your VM image, or you have access to the same VM image on AWS?
You could do either. In this case, I'm just using a base image plus configuration management, but you could do this in such a way that you build an image locally and then ship that image to Amazon. So here we go. I'm going to build entire Amazon infrastructure, like right from scratch, same image, etc. So what you can see here is this script right here, which could be Salt, could be Chef, could be anything you would like. My Ubuntu machine comes up, and the next thing my Ubuntu machine does is it runs the same exact configuration management script that my Vagrant machine ran. Does this make sense? So if you want to see these kind of side by side, what you can see here in Vagrant is I'm running deploy.sh, which contains all the information I need to run an Apache server. And then here in Amazon, I'm running the same exact file that I use for configuration management, deploy.sh. This could be Chef, could be Puppet, anything you want. And if folks are at all curious about CloudFormation, here's CloudFormation building basically an entire Amazon infrastructure. VPC, Elastic Load Balancer, Internet Gateway, route tables, everything, just like this. And this same file could be used to run infrastructure, West Coast, East Coast, like US East 1, US West 1, US West 2, any kind of infrastructure, anywhere you want to run this, just use the same exact file. You can even use the same file to build different environments. So you could use the same file to build QA. You could use the same file to build development, anything you would like. No load balancer locally. If you wanted, you could have the Vagrant file build you can have Vagrant files build 2 machines. So you could run Nginx in one machine and then a second machine running your actual application. So you could do that. Not that Amazon's ELBs are made up of Nginx. I mean, just something I heard, right? Yeah?
What is the application you are deploying here?
Just Apache with a simple web page. Nothing fancy. This could be anything. I do this with like Java apps. I do this with, like in one case, we had basically we had a very complex infrastructure, which was Redis. I wouldn't call it very complex, but we had a mildly complex infrastructure that was very hard to run locally. So Nginx, PHP 5.6, MariaDB, and Redis, plus 2 other applications that were external. So literally, in order to develop, these guys had to have an internet connection. So what we did is we mocked out 2 of the applications. So the applications were actually like mocked out running in Vagrant, plus the database was running in Vagrant, plus Redis was running in Vagrant. Before, these guys had to be attached to the internet in order to develop. Now they just type Vagrant up. They can be anywhere they want. Also, when they ship, because they used to be on Macs, They were running Max with PHP 5.4. Now when they ship, it's PHP 5.7, same as we use in Amazon. Everything exactly the same. So we're built. And what we can see now, side by side, is localhost running Ubuntu, Apache like 2.2, simple application running on my machine. Everything is exactly the same as running on Amazon. So in this case, like there will be no discrepancies between these environments. If it works here, it works there. So all these developers that are like, oh, it ran on Windows, but it doesn't run on Amazon, kind of put an end to that. It's very simple. It's pretty straightforward. I don't know, I love developing this way. I love just knowing that what I'm going to develop locally works flawlessly on Amazon. Have I tried Terraform? I have tried Terraform. To me, they're similar. I don't see a strong benefit of one over the other. I've even written my own tools that generate CloudFormation files. So I've seen it all. Ultimately, I think you just need to decide on a tool that meets your needs. I feel like Docker is sometimes challenging for folks to run locally. You have to build, so I feel that Docker lets developers build the containers locally. So like a developer could build a Docker container and put whatever they want in there. Bad practices, practices you don't want to see, like they can open up SSH, right? There's no reason to, but developers are going to do it. They can add their own logging. They can open up additional ports. They can install software. I mean, if you're shipping Docker and you're not looking at what is in Docker and you're not helping people build it, you have no idea what you're deploying to production. So I feel like here, because you're using the same configuration management as what you use in production, you have a very predictable and you have a very good understanding of what is in production. If you're shipping Docker and you're not looking at Docker, you have no idea what's there. So I love Docker. I think it's great. I think the trick with Docker is to ensure quality control on the Docker image itself. I mean, I've seen people, literally developers will just go out and pick some Docker container from God knows where, some Docker image, and they're like, oh, this is what we're using now. It's our company standard. And you're like, how do I know what's in this thing? Who built it? What's in there? And the developers don't care because it got the job done, right? So there's trade-offs for every approach. If I was going to do Docker, I would just make sure that there was partnership through the build process of the Docker containers, and I would host those Docker containers myself. So I would start with a known good image from a Docker, like a known Docker provider. Like I would start with an Alpine, and I would say, or I would start with an Ubuntu, and I would say, okay, this is what we're starting with. Then I'd work with the developer to ensure we're not installing packages that are from God knows where. At which point, I would let developers pull from a repository, like a Docker, Docker Index or Docker Hub, or from Amazon ECR. So I would produce my own images, as opposed to Wild West. I like the approach a lot. This is a little faster too, because the developers, when they're ready to ship, they don't have to go build a Docker container and do testing. So maybe a little easier. On the downside, like Docker though is incredibly consistent, right? Like it is the most consistent thing you can do. Typically what I've seen happen is you'll be involved in an engagement and somebody will say like, oh, I'm unhappy with this or I'm unhappy with that. In the case of doing experts, they were dissatisfied with the fact it was taking 20 minutes to build software, and they were dissatisfied with the fact that they were developing on Macs, or in one case a guy was developing on Windows. And they're like, look, you know, we have, like ImageMagick was wrong. At Lyft, we had a developer working on SciPy like 0.12, and we couldn't get that on a Linux box. So typically there's a problem out there where there's an inconsistency between what's in Amazon and what's on a local machine. So people aren't normally coming to me and saying, hell yeah, I want to run Docker locally. Typically people are coming to me and saying, or sorry, I want to run Vagrant locally. Typically people are saying, we're having deployment problems. Is there a good way to solve them? I think this is one way. Docker's another way as well. So right here, you'll see a multi-region CloudFormation file where you could launch a fleet of web servers in US East 1, US West 1, US West 2. So this file right here could literally build like thousands of web servers if you wanted, touch of a button. You just touch the button. So literally you type CloudFormation create stack, you point it at this file, and then you give the CloudFormation create stack command a region, and this file here will take care of it. So yes, to answer your question, it's open source, and I think I've got a pretty good one here. The other cool thing you can do with CloudFormation is establish, you're going to notice this kind of repeated trend if you talk to me a lot, is consistency. The other cool thing you can do with CloudFormation is you can create consistency between dev, QA, and production by using the exact same CloudFormation file to create every environment. I've seen a lot of companies where they have a dev CloudFormation file and a QA CloudFormation file and a production CloudFormation file. It's the wrong way to do it, because what you'll have is you'll have some guy who goes in and changes QA and doesn't change prod to match. Much better to pass in a parameter to the CloudFormation file and use the same exact CloudFormation file every single time. So I think this one doesn't do it, but there is I'll put another CloudFormation file up here tonight that allows you to use the same CloudFormation file for every environment. Like perfect parity. Cool? All right, thank you guys. If you've got Amazon questions, anything, let me know.